avoiding the snow, and I think wisely so. Let's see. We had a nice theology discussion group yesterday. There was what, six, seven, eight of us there. That was nice. We had a penultimate potluck on Friday. That was good. I don't have in my mind necessarily what's headed our way. If anybody has any particular things they'd like to announce, I encourage you to unmute and share that, share what you might have going on. Maybe we can hear from Alicia when the next community meal is.
And we do have on Tuesday night the last of the Cakes for the Queen of Heaven. And it has just been so robust. I think we'll give it another go. So if you've missed it, please look out for more news.
Hmm.
Great.
Thank
Very
you
good.
thank you so much for thinking of that. That's great. I will send out a sign up link. Okay.
Your
The the next community meal is Wednesday, February 11th.
February 11th. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
And how are we doing on volunteers?
Pretty good generally. I haven't sent out the link for this, but I feel very blessed. We have a lot of really dedicated people to help out. Yeah.
Well, we're blessed by you to organize
Thank you.
it. So
Thank
there you
you.
go. Great. Okay. Any other announcements? Stephanie?
Yep, I'd like to just remind everybody that next Saturday, Vidal Leans is coming to talk about the court case that's currently in the appellate court and certainly headed to the Supreme Court about banning transgender people from the military. That's at 3 p.m. on Saturday at First Parish in the Meeting House.
I'll be there. Yeah, good. Thanks. Okay, I'm going to light our chalice. With the words from Robert French Levins. He says, "Holy and beautiful the custom is which brings us together in the presence of the Most High to face our ideals, to remember our loved ones in absence, to give thanks, to make confession, to offer forgiveness, to be enlightened and strengthened. Through this quiet hour breathes the worship of ages, the cathedral music of history. Three unseen guests attend, faith, hope, and love. Let our hearts prepare them place." There we are. So I pulled together looking at the present political scheme. I thought something that goes unnoticed is just basic virtues. And I think that when we think about our values, we often use the phrase values, but I think virtues is as good old-fashioned word to grab people's attention as possible. Ben Franklin was reading Ben Franklin, or at least clips from Ben Franklin. A recent press conference I witnessed and my Aunt Vi were prompts for this. Spoiler alert, I'm in favor of virtues. Uh, Ben Franklin wrote that he religiously attempted to absorb the virtues by focusing on one virtue per day, and he observed that he was quite prideful and virtuous until on one Wednesday he was attempting to train himself on being humble, and he realized that he was being quite boastful. So virtues have this capacity to balance out and check one another, which I sort of love. And I think that in this time we need that. So doing them well is hard. Doing them separately is almost impossible because they lean up against one another. So today we're going to explore the notion of virtues, that old-fashioned tribute. But before that, uh, we're going to all be muted. We're going to sing "Spirit of Life." We're going to hear Linda play that on the piano, and you're going to hear yourself, but you're not going to hear other people. You'll hear the piano. So please join us in "Spirit of Life." You'll see it in the order of service online. You probably know it. Take it away, Lynn.
unmute. Already done. Okay, sorry.
Okay, well, that was what that was.
Oh,
I
good.
think that's the best we can say.
Do you
Thank
want
you,
me to
Lynn, for
read?
playing. Thankfully, nobody heard me sing, which was a virtue in its own way. And Linda's going to share for us our prayer, which is an ironic prayer titled How to Be Miserable.
See yourself as the center of the universe. Focus attention on yourself. Spend a lot of time thinking and talking about yourself. Use I and me as often as possible. Mirror yourself continually for the opinion of others. Listen greedily to what people say about you. Expect to be appreciated and be suspicious of when you're not. Be jealous and envious of others while you remain sensitive to their slights. Never forgive a criticism. Trust nobody but yourself. Demand agreement with your own views on everything. Never forget a service you have rendered someone, and likewise sulk if people are not grateful to you for the favors you have given them. Shirk your duties if you can. Follow this trusty guide. You will go a long way to being miserable.
Good advice not to follow. We're going to hear a piece called Be Ours a Religion by a choir from a couple years ago. And Rich is going to play that for us. We're just going to listen. Nice. So now's the time for joys and concerns, and I don't have many candles, but I want you to see this one, and we will. Reinhold Niebuhr, he wrote a book called The Irony of American History. That he's a scholar from Harvard from about the 20s. You can join in. I don't know if you can see the order of service in your, if you have it up, you can try to play along, and we'll see how this goes. But I adapted this into a responsive reading, and I think Linda and Pete are going to read your parts, so if no one else has heard, we'll at least hear them. He says, and I love this line, nothing that is worth doing can be achieved in our lifetime.
Therefore, we must be saved by hope.
Nothing which is true and beautiful or good makes complete sense in an immediate context of history.
Therefore, we must be saved by faith.
Nothing we do, however virtuous, can be accomplished alone.
Therefore, we are saved by love.
No virtuous act is quite as virtuous from the standpoint of our friend as it is from our own.
Therefore, we must be saved from the final form of love, which is forgiveness.
Thanks, you guys. Down here. Oop, I went too far. So here's our sermon. The sermon starts with me, as you probably do, watching a political press conference and marveling how clear it was to everyone. This sort of just struck me. Maybe it strikes you from time to time. How, from the speaker herself to the reporters asking questions to everyone watching at home, that there's always a little bit of a shell game going on at a press conference. The reporters, of course, right, want to ask questions that would reveal some of the true character and intent of the administration without alienating their ability to be called upon at the next press conference, right? The person behind the mic is looking for a creative way to answer the mildly provocative but tempered questions, but without saying things that might truly reveal the intent or plans of the politician that they are representing, and make everyone aware that no position has really been decided upon. This is the game we play. And of course, but not least, those of us viewing at home who are searching through the minutia of what's going on, we get this theater and we're looking for signs of authenticity and maybe a reveal of what's really happening. Think about that for a minute. We're so used to that in our own personal encounters with people and particularly in situations like this that we fail to realize how much polite deceit exists in simple everyday life. So as odd as it may sound for me to say it, our present president won the last election in part because everyone, like quite never before, knew that they could fully not trust what they were hearing as being anything but self-serving lies. Kind of honest that that was where the line of integrity was drawn. Lies that simplified the moral playground for those who it seems were waiting to be told not to think too much. Then, as if on cue, while I'm watching this press conference, there's a break and an advertisement for the show The Bachelor appears. And in it, it was a snippet of conversation between two of these beautiful late 20-somethings who no doubt spend hours in the gym and at the hairdresser and makeup rooms in order to be on the show for their 15 minutes of fame. And in their moments on camera, mostly and they insist that they're just simply country people who their bachelor target should simply see the inherent worth and dignity of. Kind of odd, right? As I watched, I thought that American life in general, right, is an interesting collection of moral theater, always shifting. I frequently think about how different life today is from the days in my grandparents' day when playing cards on a Sunday was a scandal, but forbidding people of color moving into your neighborhood was, a cultural preservation. I remember going quietly and politely judging people on their sexuality and their gender identity. It was part of what was acceptable, even the preservation of what's right. And it just led me to believe that our culture has been on this odd journey, pulled in a couple weird ways at all times, that sometimes we forget, or at least we're not that reflective of where we're at and where we've come from. I mean, we live in a state that's among the most liberal of all the states and the state of blue laws. that not too long ago kept stores closed on Sundays. And now you turn the radio on, and every fourth song on the radio, pardon the expression, is about bitches and Benjamins. So we become a people who have a far greater laws protecting people against discrimination, or at least we did up to now, but a place where greater economic inequality at any time in the last 100 years has happened. Huh, weird. Stephen Covey, who was popular maybe 10 years ago, he notes that the books of 150 years ago that would today be categorized as self-help nearly always focused more on the real character development and self-improvement of people than on the tactics of success, which we get a lot of today. I think that says a lot. And I think our relationship with virtues is fascinating and fascinatingly unclear. What is certainly clear is the importance virtues have on sustaining the quality of our culture. And I just want you to find a place to think about that word as the sermon goes on. And it's hard because virtues aren't easy to incorporate. They're not like rules. I remember standing one day over my aunt's house and I was changing a light bulb for her. She's old. And she was walking around the dining room talking about her childhood. She took trips, she lived in Lexington too, and she took trips to Revere Beach, which twisted into this, like that was a special trip for them every summer. Like that, they would load up in the car and they would go to Revere Beach, and this was like a one vacation day of the year. And the conversation, she was talking about a lack of character these days, and the conversation went something like this. She said, "You ought to do a sermon series on virtues." I'm silent. I'm changing the bulb. I don't disagree. But I might have issued a passing, yeah, before she responded by saying one of the simplest but one of the most profound things I've ever heard. She says, "See, the trouble is any one of us can afford to lack integrity and virtue. What we can't afford is for our neighbor to lack those qualities." And I thought that was just brilliant and even a little bit funny. I remember looking down from the chair I was standing on and saying there, "Vi, if I ever write that sermon, that quote is going in there." I said, "That's brilliant and completely true. We can afford to violate our sense of virtues. What we can't afford is for everyone else to do that." And just how interconnected we are. So I dedicate this sermon to my great aunt Vi, who is one of 5 siblings who were all pretty virtuous people. And as I started exploring the possibility of this, I was struck by how virtues are deep and important things, but they're always one word, single words. Words like
respect, discipline, patience, forbearance, sobriety, hospitality, chastity.
I'll bet you $1 hearing Pete read those. You might want to sit up a little straighter. Here's a few more.
Honesty, courage, humility,
One of the cool things about virtues is that they lean on each other. If you don't instinctively know the meaning of any one of them, you can almost gather their meaning from the other virtues that can be employed in their explanation. And I found that I explore the very idea of virtues and principles, that my blood pressure rises in that kind of spiritual, prophetic kind of way I love. A buzzy kind of righteousness, like prophetic, can wash over you. I like it. Here's a couple more.
kindness, modesty,
I could be the last one on the bus on this one. Oh, look, Pastor Steve has discovered the value of virtues. Perfect. I just think that when you're talking about virtues, we as modern people are inclined to believe that you're almost speaking about a language from a generation gone by. Virtues have a please and a thank you quality to them. If virtue had a fashion contest, a couple of the potential representatives on the catwalk would be Gandhi in a loincloth, or Emily Dickinson in some frilly laced white full body covering, or Greta Thunberg in her slightly stilted but totally earnest style. Like if there was a beauty pageant promoting virtues, we would see that Pakistani girl Mahala in a modest burqa spinning around with a pageant sash that said courage. And you can imagine Mr. Rogers hosting the pageant on virtues, and he would start the whole contest by sitting down and changing his shoes in that famous way and hanging up his sweater. And he announced the first category, kindness. See, as old-fashioned as they seem to be, virtues are far better than a list of things you shouldn't do, though. Remember, welcoming words like tolerance and kindness are virtues too. And they're very action-oriented calls for us to embody words like,
Enthusiasm, creativity, assertiveness.
and they're all virtues too, hardly that stiff. Stephen Covey says, all one needs to do is imagine the chaos and misery that a culture steeped in mistrust, meanness, stubbornness, and disrespect would bring, as we are beginning to see. To see before one realizes that if the world would fall to ruins if it fell out of the common shared values. Richard Dawkins says something interesting too. In his fascinating work called The Selfish Gene, he notes that there's a genetic balance between the successes of the genes of people who are fundamentally cooperative and those who are selfish. And he explains it this way. I think it's fascinating. He says, genetically, the genes of individuals in societies, groups, tribes that are fundamentally cooperative will always have a better chance of successfully being passed on and surviving because those that live in those societies are more likely to be successful than individuals who come or are part of a selfish or a character flawed society or group. That makes sense, right? However, he also adds that the genes of more selfish people who live within those fundamentally cooperative societies and thus very successful, together integrated, value laden communities will always have an advantage. So the selfish people have the advantage that blind self interest in the cooperative sense of people being honest and trusting will always thrive as long as there's cooperation. That's important. We can't let people become too self-interested and selfish and violate those common values, and that is at risk today. It's interestingly and oddly for a UU minister to say it's a little like that war between good and evil that so many religions have envisioned going on. This is why my aunt's phrase that what we really need is for our neighbors to be virtuous people uh, is so important. She's right. And the real quirky truth about virtues is that almost tragically, really a little bit comically, they're basically universally helpful to others, if not always expedient or advantageous for us to follow or to hold. Think about that as you live out your life and you live in this political contest. Essentially, being virtuous is instinctively a gift to others first. See, I think that if we had a cultural focus on virtues rather than being legalistic or rule minded, we'd actually have a culture of greater integrity. Said another way, selfish people will always find loopholes to the rules and the borders that the noble, principled, fair-minded communities have to set out to guide us. It's part of why I'm a UU. If we really built the beloved community that we dream of, it would, at its core, being about promoting shared values that aid one another. You could almost have voluntary taxes. But that is highly idealistic. Balancing them out is hard and hard for everyone. In reality, every person in our fast, mobile culture has to decide not whether virtues that we read through, that Pete read through earlier, listed are valuable. They're obviously valuable. The challenge we all face as individuals is how seriously and at what level of sacrifice we're committed to the struggle to live them out. Holding yourself accountable to being virtuous is hard in large part because we instinctively know that the world offers no promises that living a life attentive to those high values is always going to pay off. We know there are always only a few Joan of Arcs, a few Buddhas, a few Mother Teresas out there who get famous and develop some sense of immortality for contributing to the pool of goodwill. We also know that MLK got shot for his good works. Jesus got killed for his attempt to lift people above their love of power and rules. Mahala, the now young woman from Afghanistan, is famous because she got acid thrown in her face after that simple teenage girl stood up for the education of others. And those are the ones that get at least credit for the taxes for their virtuous behavior. So the real question for us, and I'm going to open this up to discussion, is not whether we're for virtues, but whether and in what cases we find it worth it. And that is a very serious question to take seriously and bring to the conversation of a collective group like this. And I'll finish my sermon with that, and I will just, well, let's do 10 minutes of back and forth on this that I'll sort of just mediate with hands raised. Any thoughts on that?
I want to be.
Anyone?
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. This is Celia.
Yep.
I think the focus on others is the key virtue that I guess I'm taking away from your messaging. And I thank you for that.
Yeah. Linda had her hand raised, or Pete, one of the two. Unmute, please.
You sort of asked, how can we keep doing this? And at least for me personally, even though I'm terrible at it, I can't stop myself because it makes my heart feel good. You know, there's no choice.
Yep. I agree. Yep.
Before I mute us again, it's the ocean we grew up in. I mean, being good and kind and helping others, that's what my parents, our whole family did all the time. And if we didn't, you know, we didn't have a choice. And so that's how I was raised. And I don't think I could do it differently either. If I am not kind, I feel terrible about it for days. Right, Pete?
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Stephanie? Thanks, Linda.
I was said something the other night that raised a couple of eyebrows at the at the dinner, and I think people misunderstood what I was saying. I was getting a lot of compliments on my pea soup, which I consider a fairly average, basic staple. But, and I said, I'm renowned. I seem to be renowned for my cooking. And people looked at me like, aren't you braggadocious? No. I was being ironic. Of all the things that I ever wanted to do or might have done or could have done, what I end up being known for is my pea soup. And just to go one bit further, I was once helped by a garage mechanic in Pittsburgh 10 years after my father died, and I didn't live there anymore. And I went back and I was in trouble. And this guy immediately dropped everything to help me get back here. And it was because my dad gave him soup when he was sick. He said, "Your dad helped me." And I just think it's interesting that how people think of it. I'm the lady who gives you, say, "Here, have a cookie, have some soup."
Right, right.
But I think, it's a beautiful thing. Anyway,
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Steph.
Yeah, I was kind of struck by some of the language at one point. I noticed like when Pete was reading off different virtues, they were single words, and I think thought about, well, like Ten Commandments, the seven principles, they're all very short and concise. And it seems like the shorter something is, a lot of times the greater power it carries. The simpler the idea, the easier it is to grasp, the greater power it carries to influence our lives and our behaviors. And I think that's really important.
Totally. And there's beauty in it, right? Like a word like resilience, right? It can't be explained with one other word. It's too big, but it's in itself kind of like a flower. It's a word flower in a weird way, right? Um, Anyone else before we move on to our closing hymn? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. The Rebergs. I don't know who's going to speak, but you got to unmute.
So I was thinking about many of these virtues are contagious in the sense that as you exemplify or you conduct those things, it influences other people to do the same things. If you're kind, even the simplest kindness in a grocery store line or whatever, other people pick up on that and pass it on. So I think that maybe that's inherent in the virtues. I don't know.
Yeah.
I see Anne has her hand up as well.
Thanks, Dean. I can't see everybody.
Thanks, Dean. Yeah, I'm way off in the end because I disconnected by mistake. Good morning. I was thinking back to Great Aunt Vi and
Yeah.
the what originally to me sounded like a comedy a little bit about what she was saying, but isn't it so true that when you're in a difficult situation, all of the holes in other people's network of virtue seems to stand out. I know for me, instead of what's my part in it all. And so taking that time to just be not judgy, gosh, and just looking at my own interplay when things feel uncomfortable and what is it that I can be doing to be a better friend to myself and observe rather than correct.
Yeah.
I see Christina has her hand up.
Thank you, Dean.
Yeah, I was just going to echo what people were saying about how the kindness can spread from one person to another. And I had a similar kind of experience where I was in line for hot chocolate, and the person in front of me bought whatever I bought. And they left and they paid for me. And so I still remember this. It was like 10 years ago, but like a week later, I did the same thing. In a grocery store, I bought whatever the person behind me was buying. And it just, I guess that's the way it works, that if you're in a community where people are kind, it kind of flows between people. But then I think of these ice age, sorry to go back to this, but if you're in a community where people are unkind to each other, like what we saw on the streets where ICE agents are mistreating people, then that becomes your framework of reality. So I think
Yep.
we have to hope that kindness wins.
I think we will win to the degree that we hold, speak, whatever you want to call will win to the degree that we uphold American values more than the other side upholds American values. And I've faith in that, and I have faith that people will come around and will restore some sense of normalcy to what doesn't feel that normal at the moment. Let's
I see
turn
Jeff
to
has his hand up.
okay. Yep. Go ahead, Jeff, and then Kara has her hands up too after that, after Jeff.
Hi.
Or-
So I just wanted to be brief because I know it's getting later. What I really liked was the responsive reading with,
Mm.
that nothing can be achieved in our lifetime, what's true and beautiful. Just all of these like thoughts, like no virtuous act is quite as virtuous from the standpoint of our friends as it is from our own. That
Right.
is that is pretty funny, but at the same time, like that was a good reminder for me. I guess in a way, I don't think about that in my daily life. Like, what is going to exist beyond my existence when I'm gone, or, what is the thing that I want the world to carry on after I am gone.
Yeah.
And so that was a profound thought for me today, and I appreciate that you helped me think about that. And also to remember how important people are. I feel like for me personally, when I was in grad school, and also just in education in general, professors are taught to be very individualistic, and it's kind of important to do the job. You have to be able to do a lot of tasks on your own. But there's also a sense of, oh, I did everything. I published that research paper. I taught that class. I made all this change in the world. And it's nice to remember that, virtuous act can be done alone. And so that was humbling for me. And I don't think I consciously think about that when I'm acting, but it's good to be reminded so I don't act above the students or accidentally put down somebody in their effort to contribute to research and things like that. So that was where I kind of applied the thoughts.
Yeah. Our power is fairly limited to be just the people that we are. Kara, go ahead. We'll close with Kara. You had your hand up, I believe, Kara, or no? You're muted. Kara, you remain muted if you want to talk.
I have my hand up, Steve, if
Oh,
Kara
okay.
doesn't
Okay.
want to talk.
Okay. Sounds good. Go ahead.
Yeah, I
All right, I
just
figured it
wanted to
out.
share. Go ahead.
Let Corinne go first.
Okay.
Go ahead, Corinne.
I just wanted to share that you know, as I've been watching things unfold in Minnesota, one thought that I had is I saw this huge frame of people protesting. I think it was a couple of days ago, and just the sheer number of people who were out there protesting. And I thought about the students with whom I'm working, and I thought about showing them that image, because on some levels, I feel like the people in Minnesota are really embodying, and I've seen many of their signs that say "Love thy neighbor." Um, it's just been, to me, very amazing to watch the response from that particular state and the volume of people and businesses and elected officials involved with supporting immigrants who they view to be, their neighbors, and to be treated with dignity and respect, and their willingness to show up in such large numbers.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, yep. It's it's a show of integrity. Kara?
Oh, I try, but I agree with you. Relationships are extremely complicated. Um, uh, 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 I and my and people do not understand me at all. What does First Parish need now? I try extremely hard. Is Donna Morris here? I don't see Donna Morris.
Donna's here. Yeah.
I don't see Donna Morris. Donna Morris and I relationships are extremely complicated for reasons that I don't know. Um, I try to be kind, but relationships are extremely complicated, and I tend to favor animals. They don't judge. They don't judge you.
It is easier. The koalas don't
And
argue back.
the dogs. The dogs. My sister has 2 dogs. Relationships and people are extremely complicated, and everyone's brain is different, and they don't understand. I most often don't get understood.
Well, we pray for understanding.
Um, uh, well, I could be more kind.
Okay. Let's close with our closing hymn. I know this rose will open. Rich is going to show that video, and I think we're all going to sing along at home or watch and mouth the words, knowing we're muted. Who knows what we'll do?
I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know my skin. I know my skin. I know my skin. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know my skin. I know my skin. I know my skin. I know my skin. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know this rose will open.
Thank you, Rich. Our closing words come from my father, my late father, Norman Wilson, who many of you met, who says, "Go in peace," or just go. Nobody can miss you if you don't leave. And we can all hang in here and chitty chat if we want, but our service has come to a close. And thank you for being here today on this